Cheat Code.
Hey everyone, welcome to Pickleball Cheat Code, the show for competitive pickleball players who want to level up their game. We focus on advanced strategies for experienced players, stuff only the pros really know. I'm Brody Smith. I'm a 5.5 level player and a coach, and I'm here with my co-host, the one and only Tanner Tomasi, who's a 6.0 level player and an APP national bronze medalist. Today we're covering everything you need to know about serving and returning in pickleball. And at the end of the episode, stick around. We're going to discuss Tanner's latest PPA outing against Ben Johns, so you don't want to miss it. But yeah, let's get into the episode here.
Let's go. I'm ready to get it on.
Of course. And as we discussed previously, back in episode 0, the episodes here, these aren't about the basics of serving and returning. Everybody knows those basics. Hit it deep, hit it hard. Instead, we're going to be breaking down the key skills that separate high-level players and know how to improve these skills. Some players think that serves and returns aren't really a big deal in the sport, and they focus on a lot of other areas, where plenty of other people think that this is one of the most overlooked aspects of the game. Personally, I'm somewhere in the middle, but would love to hear your thoughts on that, Tanner.
Yeah, I think serving and returning does get overlooked, but especially in today's game and day and age where the paddles are so fast. I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, but hitting a really hard, big serve can set you up to win pretty much an easy point, give you a free point. And same thing with a return. If you hit like a pretty solid, strong, deep return coming in fast, it'll give your opponents a very hard time hitting an accurate third shot, getting up to the kitchen line.
100%. Yeah. If you don't overlook it, it can really make all the difference on a match. It comes down to 1 or 2 points. And if you're not taking those parts of the game seriously, that could be the difference between a win and a loss easily. So let's break it down between serving. And then after this, we'll go towards returning, kicking things off with the serving side of things. So I put together a list of the 4 most important aspects of what I think entails for a high level serve. And I wanted to get your thoughts on them after I break them down. So quickly, just firing off. 1, I think adding more wrist for power and spin is really key. 2, attacking weak points, which is pretty obvious. Then 3, conditioning your opponent. And then 4, consistency. So for the first one, adding wrist, I see a lot of players when they swing through, they're using their body, which is important, and mainly their arm, but they don't really snap their wrist at the end of a serve enough. I don't know if that's something that you experiment a lot with. I play very loose with my wrists, and I notice I get way more topspin, way more kick on my serves, but wanted to get your thoughts there on that.
Yeah, I think using the wrist is super important. Somebody I practice with a good amount, Grayson Golden, who is a phenomenal singles player. He beat Ben Johns. He wins, I think, over Federico. I think very good singles player regardless. He's won APP events. He says that when you serve or hit forehands or backhand drives, that your wrist should be like you're snapping a towel, like almost like a lasso or a whip. So that's key, and that's something I wasn't doing until he kind of shed that light on me.
Yeah, that's key. And whenever I'm coaching, I always avoid players using their wrist at a lower level because I feel like that can cause a lot of inconsistencies and chaos. But if you're at a point where you're really comfortable with your serve, you're consistently hitting your serve deep 10 out of 10 times, I always think it's good to play around with that and see what sort of snap you get from it. Then second thing, attacking the weak points. If you see somebody with a weak backhand, I'm going there every single time, right? I'm sure you do the same thing. That one's really straightforward. The third part that I think is really overlooked is being mindful about conditioning your opponent. So what I mean by that is just serving to the person's forehand every single time. And then maybe after 8 points or something, going straight at the backhand and throwing them for a loop, or instead changing the pace of your serve. Maybe it's all flat, and then that 8th serve, you do a high loopy one. Is this something that you experiment with when you're playing tournaments, making sure you're conditioning your opponent and throwing them off accordingly?
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point that you said that you say that. I would say that, I don't know if I'd put a number on it. I guess it's like you said, every 8. You're just throwing that out there. Yeah. I think for me, just like how I'm feeling, if I've been serving and I feel like the opponent, is handling it well and it's not really messing them up in any sense, then I'll go ahead and say, okay, now would be a good time to I throw in like kind of like a loopy lob serve, not like a big lob, but basically a higher soft serve, trying to get as deep to the baseline as possible. I know if people hit really strong returns, this can often mess them up because they kind of have to hit this ball off the rise. So that's a little pro tip there.
Yeah. And sometimes they'll give me a heavy chop back and I can struggle with that. And when you're serving a high soft serve too, I feel like that's a good way to counter it. Outside of that lofty, lob type serve, is there anything else that you throw in to confuse your opponents or any other type of serves that you're really going after?
I practice like the screwball or banana serve, where like you come underneath of it. I don't really use it much in tournaments, but I probably should. I really just alternate from like the strong deep power to like the deep lob serve, but I got to mess around with that.
I see some players with a good banana serve. I don't see it in tournaments much, maybe because it's a little bit risky. Do you see players at your level at the pro level doing that serve often at all?
No, but two people that do it, Tyra Black and Mari Humberg both have one. That's pretty effective, especially if, say, they're playing mixed or women's doubles, doesn't matter. If the team is stacking and then they have to unstack, they'll throw in that serve so the players are on the wrong side.
Makes sense. Yeah. And how do you approach that in mixed in general? And I mean, especially mixed because there's more stacking in mixed. And then you, as a lefty, you're stacking a lot. Is that something that you're really thinking about and considering, making sure teams don't unwind the sack? So when they're not on the correct side, you're serving deep and wide every time. Is that fair to say? I feel like that's the approach I like to take to make sure they stay off balanced.
Yeah, that's definitely an approach. I would say if they're like switching sides, I definitely try to get the ball as wide as possible. So they're late switching and I can drive that next ball or at least hit like a hybrid that's dipping over the net to basically get an easy pop up.
Makes sense. And then last thing I had on this list was consistency. And we've talked about this in person before, actually, because I think it's a really interesting concept is how risk reward based you are with a serve. Obviously, it's a serve. It's like a free throw in basketball. You got to knock it in. You can't make mistakes and you can't turn it over, so to speak. What percentage of the time do you think you're making your serves in a match? Like how many are you missing? Because obviously you're going to want to apply that pressure, go deep, make some mistakes happen, cause a pop-up so your next shot's maybe an easy drive. But how do you balance that in a pro level match between applying a lot of pressure while being as consistent as you possibly can?
Yeah, I would say it's like a fine line. I'd say like maybe one per match is good, two, okay. Anything more than that, like it's kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. But I definitely will start the match not serving like as hard as I can just to kind of build up that confidence, get some flow. And then as like the game progresses towards like that fourth, fifth, sixth point, I would say I'm probably swinging at full speed and trying to really capitalize.
Yeah, that's a good. I think I've noticed myself do that in a tournament before, where I'll just try to rip that first serve and start off a match, and then I just hit the tape, and I'm like, okay, I'm not in the flow right now. A little tight for the tournament. That's funny. And then what about the approach between singles and doubles? I forgot who was chatting about this, but there's been discourse regarding being extra risky for that serve in singles as opposed to doubles. And is that an approach you take too? Because, I feel like you have to go heavier, right? Oh, I think Zane was talking about this, making sure you go really heavy on your serve. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, in singles, I definitely am ramped up from point one. The reason is in singles, if you hit like a really strong serve and you get a weak return back, you pretty much are almost guaranteed to win the point if you can get a really short return. In doubles, if you hit a really strong serve and get a short return back, you could get like a pop-up and put it away. But in singles, it's almost like a guarantee. So in singles, I'm full speed aiming toward that baseline, like 95% power, really just trying to get free points to steal from my opponent.
What do you do to get that extra boost of power? I mean, what does your stance look like when you're serving? What are some of the techniques that are your building blocks of your serve?
I'll tell you the secret tip is just put lead tape on the top of your paddle. I discovered that like maybe like 4 months ago, and now I use a different paddle for doubles and singles. It will literally, you can do everything the exact same and you will hit the ball twice as hard. If you're not putting lead tape on your paddle for singles, and like not for doubles, whatever, but for singles, you're massively at a disadvantage.
Okay, so for me, I use the same for both just because I don't play a ton of singles. Obviously, I focus mainly on doubles. I go bottom corners up to the sides. Mine's pretty heavy, maybe 9.1, 9.2 ounces, which is slightly higher, probably just because I'm so strong and big. Anyway, for singles, is that your approach for doubles? So you go bottom corners and then just do the same thing and then add it on the top. So it's essentially the same, but a heavier paddle.
Yeah. So for doubles, I just have it in the bottom corners. For singles, same exact thing, bottom corners, and then just like less barely in like the top corners, just like a tad.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. I need to try that out. And does it throw you off at all though when you're hitting like a basic drive? Because a lot of your shots are going to be similar. You know, your serve and drive will be pretty similar. Even sometimes when you're hitting a cross court drop, does that, throw you off at all when you're switching between weight, like your mindset?
No, after you hit like one or two balls, I feel like you kind of adjust. Yeah.
Good to know. And then back to the stance thing too, because I know there's so many different ways to approach a serve stance. I stay where both of my feet are against the, whatever we call it, the service line. So I stay flat. Open stance. So I go open stance. And I think it's the same way like Tyson and a lot of those players serve. So I'm standing flat. I experimented with a couple different ways, and then I've just been doing that for years now. I don't know what it is. I feel like there's less steps in my motion, so I feel really consistent, and I really turn my hips and my shoulders as I swing. Every single time I'm stepping through, my right foot's falling into the court. It almost looks funny. I'm just like falling forward right as I hit it, but I get a lot of snap and a lot of power. And I know you're not open stance. How do you play for your serves?
I'm closed stance. So basically I'm almost like facing like, say like the side fence. And then with my serving motion, when I make contact to the ball, I'm like turning my shoulders and hips and kind of exploding through the ball. So from sideways to straight to try to get all like the energy out of my body and into the serve. I've experimented a while with the serve that you were doing, an open stance, like Tyson and Kwong. And just comparatively for me, side by side, a closed stance, like the way Ben John serves, I just get much more power in that closed stance. It's different for all people, but I know for me, it's got to be closed.
All right. That's interesting. I mean, you were touching on some pros then. So let me throw this at you. Top pros, who would you say, besides me, of course, who has the best serve out there on tour? Who's serving the hardest, who's giving you the most fits? What do you see out there that's, who's got the most impressive serve there?
Yeah, so I recently played like Tyson and Kwong, and their serves were both unbelievable. I've played Deckel, his serve is unbelievable. So it's really a mix of people, like they all have their own style, but they seem to be able to hit it hard. I think the really important part of it is like using your entire kinetic chain and like, meaning like using your entire body to connect to the ball as opposed to just swinging with your arm.
Yeah. Building your power from literally your toes, your calves, all the way up your hip and getting that twist. What's funny is you're an open stance you're open stance guy, and two of the 66%. Closed. You're closed. I'm open. 66% of the players you just listed, 2 out of 3, we'll call it, are open stance servers. And you said those are the best. Maybe we're reconsidering your serve stance. I don't know. You said Kwong and Tyson, they both do that. Yeah,
maybe. Just because I played them just recently, I was like, holy cow, these guys hit it hard. I don't know what it is. But everybody really, like, especially at that level, like you're talking like the top 10 PPA players, like all of them are going to have a super hard serve, even if they're playing like a frying pan,
Yeah, no question. There's a lot of levels to that. And I've seen more and more of what that looks like lately. And it's really crazy. Transitioning though, we chatted a lot about serving there, touched on a lot of great things, and we'll wrap up there more at the end. But in regards to returning, let me throw this at you. So if you had to choose, would you rather have an A+ day on a tournament PPA of serving or an A+ day of returning? What's more important to you when competing at the highest level?
Great question. I would say having an A+ day returning is definitely more important. If you hit weak returns, especially, I know that maybe the people watching, you're not playing against Tyson and Kwong, but I can tell you firsthand, They were hitting the serves really hard, and my partner and I were hitting short returns. And all of the points we lost were from just them driving. When it got to the net, the few points that were at the net, it felt even, like 50-50, like we're hanging in there. But they were definitely winning just the transition and the serve and return game. So if you're not returning well, you just have no chance in a match. Good players will capitalize and just rip the ball and rip the next one and the next one.
Yeah, especially those tennis players coming in the game. If they see a short serve return, they're just going to eat it. What are some things that you really like to focus on to get a quality serve return? Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, depth, so important. If you can get it as deep as you can, that's obvious. Getting some shape in the ball and some pace. What are some of the key factors that you look at for making sure you get that quality serve return?
Yeah, so the main thing I look at when I'm hitting a good return of serve is wherever the ball is coming, let's say it's to my forehand, I am trying to time my first step to hitting the ball. So I don't want to swing and then start running. When I hit the ball, I want to take my first step and kind of use all momentum to launch all of my power through the ball and allow me to propel myself to the kitchen line, as opposed to just swinging and then running or running through it. I kind of want to use that first step to hit it. Makes and sense. Boom, go.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Do you ever feel like you're getting inconsistent with connecting those steps at once versus like pausing, then hitting? Or do you find yourself more consistent by having that step through where you're trying to get more power, if that makes sense?
I would say if I focus on another thing is really staying down through the ball. You want to hit through and stay through it with your whole body. Don't pop up. I would say if I can time my first step and like I'm doing it well that day, it's very good. If I'm missing some returns, let's say like for singles, I just missed a return. What I'm going to do, or doubles, is I'm going to hit the return completely stationary and then just run to the kitchen line like slightly late. A good quality return is so much more important than getting to the kitchen line. 100%. So if I miss one, I'm hitting it, then going, definitely.
Yep. And when I'm out there coaching, some of the most common mistakes and issues I see for players that aren't playing at a super high level are just the basics of hitting it in the net, sending it too long, popping it up, like you said, for an easy attack by not getting any of that depth. This used to drive me crazy in my own game. I would be pretty inconsistent with the serve return, making so many errors in a match, which just really kills you at the end of the day. And I still have days where I struggle with that. I'm just having an awful serve return day. What do you think causes most of those errors for people that aren't competing at the highest level, that are making these mistakes consistently? What are some of the things that you see that they're doing wrong more often than not?
So for people that are missing often is with the serve or return, really, is it's normally going to come down to just trying to aim too precisely. Like I know most returns are missed, most serves are missed because like they're trying to get it on just inside the back line, where in reality, like if you get it inside the back line or like a foot and a half inside the back line, it's not going to make too much of a difference unless you're like obliterating the ball, hitting it super fast. I would just prioritize really getting it in, and then kind of the power is all a bonus. The second thing that stems from it for the return of serve specifically missing is just poor footwork. You have to be really active and physical with your feet, really trying to like get behind the ball. If you're stuck reaching or you let it get too close into your body, you'll often find yourself missing short or long.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the other things to add on to that too, I think that's perfect, is I see too big of a swing, I think is the most common. Even people playing at a high level, they're still trying to take this huge stroke and bring the paddle way behind their body, which, maybe can be effective for some players. But I think really focusing on keeping everything out in front of you and staying really compact has been one of the most important things for at least people that I coach and people that I work with. So that's important. And then one of the biggest pieces of advice I got for when I was making consistent errors, maybe missing a couple serve returns a match, which you just can't have at the end of the day, is my coach, Austin in San Diego. Shout out Austin. I would try to really time it where I'm wrapping around and trying to come through the ball and snap it at the last second, versus keeping a closed face throughout the whole return process. So what I mean is by keeping simple tracking, having my paddle face closed and stay flat and drive through it, versus trying to rotate through. Because if you are too early, that ball is going to be, popping out wide left. And then if you're too late, it's going to go out wide left. Too early, it's going to be, your face will be open and it's going to shoot off to the right. at least for a righty. So I don't know if that's something you see either, but I think keeping that close face can be really important for days when you're playing off there.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. The closed face just allows you to kind of like slingshot through the ball.
Exactly.
If you come too high above it, you're just going to lose power.
Yeah, like you said, then focus on your legs, focus on a consistency, and just drive through the ball. For returning, where do you like to return the ball? I mean, and how does this play into you as a lefty and, versus a righty? Do you have strategic spots? For me personally, let's say I'm on the left side and I'm returning a serve. I'm always rolling inside out as heavy as I can and just really trying to rip the shit out of the ball because I have so much more court to work with when I'm going diagonal cross court. I just like to hit inside out forehands just from my style of play anyway. So that's been the most effective for me. But what is your approach to that? And what are your thoughts on placement?
Yeah, I would say I try to just see if one player is weaker in one area, meaning their forehand or backhand. Yeah. Say both players are strong off both sides. I'll maybe go middle just to take away angles. Players, especially like low-level pros, high-level pros, they're good off both wings. So say you return like down the sideline to somebody to their backhand, they might have like a really aggressive backhand roll drop. And if they do that, like it's heavy, it's hard to handle. Mm-hmm. If you return to the middle of the court, it kind of takes away them being able to hit like these super aggressive drops. And it kind of forces them to hit kind of like flatter balls as opposed to like dipping over the net with extreme spin. So I would say I kind of target the middle, or I start out targeting if somebody has a weakness, and then I kind of just target around the middle. Another thing is if you're playing a team that likes to shake and bake, meaning one's driving really hard and the other one's crashing, I will return to the person, the left side player, basically, if you're playing two righties. So the player that is, that has a good drive, I'm returning to him because then the other player has to crash with their backhand, which is less of a threat.
That makes sense. So you're returning to the guy on their left, right? Because then otherwise, if they're coming through the right side player, they can't just fly through the lane and just take that backhand through and snap it, right?
Yeah, theoretically, like not many players can do that. Some can, but that's definitely less of a threat, less reach than somebody with a forehand for sure.
That's a good point. I feel like I don't take that into account enough. Yeah, because I'm always so worried about the person who's just going to hit it harder and keep it as simple as that. But those shake and bake teams, there's always somebody that's going to crash way harder than the other. So it's always something good to think about.
Yeah, a quick little like tidbit of information, just two things for the viewers, and I'm sure you can benefit from it as well, Brody, is if you're struggling getting to the kitchen line, meaning like you're serving, they're returning, and you just can't get into the line, it normally means you're not serving big enough. So if you serve and hit harder, you might get a weaker return. So by getting a weaker return, you might be able to hit your third shot drop from like the middle of the court and get to the kitchen line almost for free. Whereas if you're serving weak, your opponents are hitting big returns. You have to like fight your way in. If you have to fight your way in, you're losing the serve. You're just losing the serve game. The second thing is I like to break the matchup into almost like two different areas. I want to win at the net for sure, but I want to win the serve and return game. So if it's like 5-5 in a match, like it's halfway through, talk to your partner and be like, all right, are we winning the serves and returns right now, or are they? If you're losing the game, you're probably losing the serve and return game. It's like a little mini game within.
That's good to know. Yeah. And that's really valuable. It's like thinking about it as just two sides of the game. It's almost like golf. You have your putting and then you have everything else, like just splitting it up into two things and keeping it as simple as that. That's good advice. And then another thing that I think I remember you talking about that got a ton of traction on one of your videos was how the typical rally, I think around maybe 4-0 and below level, only is 4 or 5 shots until the rally's over. And I feel like that puts so much stress and importance on the value of serving and returning. Did I get that stat right? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, at the 4.0 level, like 70% of rallies only last 5 balls.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. That says so much right there. That's half of those shots. That's serving and returning. It's like in that, like you said, if you go big on those, that's going to change who's winning those matches night and day, right?
Totally agree. Yeah, the serve and return, it gets overlooked, but I would start to put emphasis on it. I know I have been for the past at least 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, I think that answers our original question just by talking this out loud, how overlooked it is even for myself. That's crazy. And then I want to transition a little bit more into just taking a step back at looking at serving and returning as a whole. So even if a player's mechanics are perfect and, serve returns you can really fall apart under pressure is what I'm getting at in a tournament. So we've seen top pros even get the yips during a match, even like amazing players like Connor Garnett, who's an incredible server and incredible returner. I have seen phases where players like him and other top players might start falling off the rails a little bit, and it can just happen to anyone. In your experience for the serving and returning aspect of pickleball, how much of it is mental versus skill based, would you say?
I would say it's probably majority mental. If you just like show somebody that's never played pickleball before and you're like, serve this ball, like it's not too hard. You're just standing like, 40 feet from like the other side of the box.
Exactly.
And it's a gigantic box. I think it's just, you get mental of like, oh shoot, I want to aim to their backhand. I want to get it out wide. I want to put the spin. If you just aim toward the center of the box, you could probably get it like blindfolded. I think it's more mental than anything.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And that's kind of what I wanted to drill on a little bit too, because I think that aspect is also really overlooked, the mental side of it. I mean, the mental game in pickleball is obviously just, you can drill into that on every aspect, whether it's dinking, but I see it the most with serve and returns, including myself. I'll have a tournament, I'll be playing rec, where sometimes I'm just missing like 5 returns in a single match and I'm just driving myself crazy. And some things I've been working on and I've noticed that help improve that for me is just as simple as taking a few deep breaths and just treating it like, you just don't give a crap about the serve and just making it as simplistic as possible. Are there any tricks that you go about for supporting that mental side of the game when you're in a tournament?
I think a few deep breaths are great. Yeah. I would say for the mental, it's just like I said, just really going for the center of the box, not trying to do too much. But I would say if you are missing serves in a tournament or something, say you're nervous, you're probably altering your form that got you there. You're probably like doing too much, bigger backswing, moving the paddle a different way. If I'm really struggling missing a serve, I'm just shortening my backswing, shortening everything. So it's really just like a small motion as opposed to something huge. Just a really small to serve would be way less going on.
Yeah, just really simplifying the process. Yeah, no, that's good advice, and that's something I need to even focus on more myself versus just hoping deep breaths do the trick. So that's good to know. So let's take it even a bigger step back. So like you said, this is something that I myself want to tie into my game more and be better at. What are some drills? I mean, I know you know a lot of the drills and a lot of the tips and tricks for a ton of pickleball. What's the next step for even yourself for hitting the lab to improve your game on the serve and return aspect? What are you going to apply to your game moving forward here when you're training?
I know for me personally, I played like tennis in high school, so I didn't really have an extensive background. I just, like I said, played 3 years there in high school, just with high school coaching and like a local person coaching me one-on-one. So my fundamentals of like the strokes still aren't perfect. So what I'm actively working on is like that towel snap with my wrist. A lot of the power does come through there. So just being able to like consistently hit that and have control of the ball will give you a lot of power. You just have to be able to learn it by practicing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then by practicing, did you have any drills that might be helpful for people, including myself, that would be, effective to really improving that, whether it's the wrist snap, getting depth, getting more topspin? Is there any drills that you could think of that would be valuable?
I don't know if there's anything too specific. I really think just like the classic, just get like a bucket of balls and set up like a cone and trying to land like behind the cone, aiming deep. I think that would do the trick with serving since it's generic. There's not too much going on with it. Yeah,
no, that makes sense. I mean, that's the thing. It's such a hard thing to drill. So, and we'd love to know if any of the viewers or listeners out there have some really effective drills that they've noticed beyond cones and repetition. That can be really effective in itself. But if there's anything else that anybody can think of, that'd be amazing to hear. So please reach back out to us, put some comments in there, and it'd be awesome to know. Cool. Well, I think we covered the majority of a lot of serving and returning, and we can touch on it more in other episodes in the future too, because it's such an integral part of the game. Are there any final takeaways that you have for people regarding serving and returning that would be good to know? Any tricks that you got?
I think we pretty much covered everything. Just really making sure you stay down and hit through the ball on both. And just if you're struggling getting to the net, it means you're not serving big enough.
Love it. Well said. Well said, my man. Cool. Well, I think that covers the majority of it. And I think we nailed a lot of that, which is exciting. So, transitioning out here, tell me about your recent PPA that you had. We started the episode by mentioning that you played Ben, good old Benny J. I don't think people really know who he is in the pickleball world, but I hear he's pretty good. What was your experience like playing against him on the biggest stage out there? How'd that go?
Yeah, I'll tell you what happened. It was PPA Cape Coral. We qualified for men's doubles. We played our first match. We won. And then we were going to get our paddles tested to go against Big Ben Johns and Andre Deescu. We're getting the paddles checked or paddles tested to make sure we're good to go. I get a text on my phone like, you're on the court, grandstand. So walking over there.
Start sweating a bit?
No, I'm good to go. This is what I practice for.
Let's go,
so
baby.
I start walking over to the grandstand court, and it's like packed, like three people deep. Just you can't even get in there. And I'm like, oh shoot, I'm on this court. So I just walk in. I get in there, and I'm like, it was a surreal moment. Being able to play pickleball on top of that was cool. Just to have everybody watching. A large majority of the people in the crowd were rooting for me. They know the 60-second guy, so it was pretty fun. But playing Ben and Andre, they just do the fundamentals really well. It's not like Tyson and Kwong where it's a big threat where they're going to rip the ball at your face and just crash. You just really can't beat yourself is what I learned playing against those guys.
That's what I figured. They're just going to find a way to make you beat yourself because they're so sharp and they've just put in so many hours. And their cross-court dinking, I feel like, is just so consistent. It's insane.
Yeah, it is. In the second game, we were up 9-7 and had 2 different side outs. So we had 4 different looks, and it just came down to missing the third shot and missing the 5th shot. So just got to serve better and just got to be ready for the moment.
Serves and returns, could they have been improved there? Anything else that you'd be looking to if you were to go back in time and go to that match? Is there anything you would have changed from a serve and return aspect of that?
I would say like when it gets tight in a big moment like that, I should start going for it more. I think the more and more I do it, the more it'll pay off as opposed to like kind of babying it in. It's just making it more difficult, especially since they're both over. Like I think Ben's 6'2" and Andre's like maybe 6'4", 6'5". So when those guys are stationed at the kitchen line, they're hitting your third shot drop, like they're hitting the 4th ball, it's pretty difficult. But a big serve might delay or lag them getting up to the line.
Got it. Awesome. Well, I think that's all we have here for this episode. Episode 1's in the books, Tanner. I don't know about you, but I'm pumped about this. I'm so excited to continue this journey. We have so much to break down in the pickleball world, so many episodes to come. You have so much experience here, and I'm excited to bring my coaching background and play here into the picture too. So there's a lot to come, and I'm pumped and hope you had a good time here.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to the next one.
All right, dude. Well, good luck in your next tourney, and we'll chat soon.
Sounds good.
All right. See you, man.